Okay, in this video, I decided to show you a method of using Quad Remesher and displacement maps to create a better mesh that would normally be darn near impossible for Quad Remesher to do. Okay, so what I wanted to do is Quad Remesher really sort of fails when you have folds and wrinkles that are really tight or that even touch each other. And so I developed this method or this workflow to compensate for that. And so I made a mesh. Like I said, this would be normally very difficult, and I'll show you, I'll demonstrate what you get when you use a Quad Remesher on something like this skirt that I made. It's just a simple circle skirt. So after I made my skirt and I exported out the 3D shape, I then exported out the 2D shape as well. Okay, and you also want to make sure that you set the UVs to 1 to 1 or 0 to 1. I'm sorry, so that it will fit neatly into the regular UV space. That is a must. You have to do that, and you have to do that before you export out your 3D shape, so that your 3D shape and your 2D shape are going to have the same exact UVs. Okay, so then I came over here to Maya and I imported those two shapes. Okay, I imported those two shapes, and we're going to be using these two shapes. Now, let me put this on its own layer real quick so I can hide it a little bit. Okay, I'm just going to name this flat. You can, you don't have to put it on a different layer, but I just did. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate Quad Remesher when it tries to retopologize this. Okay, and I'm going to pause it while it's going to do it fairly quickly. Okay, and I'm going to pull it over to the side here. And this has horrible, horrible edge flow. Yeah, you could try to put guides in here to compensate, but it's, believe me, it's not going to work that well, especially with the number of folds and wrinkles. It's just not going to do a great job, even with, like I said, even by putting in guides here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to give, it's much easier for Quad Remesher to retopologize something that is simple. And I did put an edge straight up and down the front and the back to have a nice seam in the front and the back. So even if we were to come into here and here these seams, I could have put one here. In Marvelous Designer, I put anyway, I put an internal line going straight up and down. Okay, we're still in UV Editor, that's why you're not seeing it here. Let's see if we go to, well, let's go to regular simulator and then switch over to the there we go. Okay, so you can see I put in internal lines there. I could have put internal lines here and here as well to have seams on the side, but I didn't. So anyway, so we have those edges, and we're going to harden edge. Okay, one thing you should know when you're using Quad Remesher, make sure after you import your OBJ from Quad Remesher, you want to select the object, and you want to come in here, set to face, and then soften the edges. Otherwise, the hard edges, because we're going to use hard edges to create our guides. Okay, so now those edges, this edge, did it select it all? Yeah, is set to hard. Dashed edges are soft, solid edges are hard. Okay, and we're going to use normal splitting. I, for the longest time, thought soft hard edges, that this would be the guide, would be the hard edges. But no, it's you want to use hard edges, and you want to use normal splitting. Okay, and let's go into object mode. So we're in object mode, and remesh it. And now that we have this, we can then, we're going to select both. So we're going to select the one that has the original, and then here's the one that the Quad Remesher created, and we're going to use transfer mesh attributes, and we're going to want to transfer the UVs using world space. Okay, so what that just did is it I can get this to come in here. What that just did is our retopologized mesh now has the UVs of the original mesh. And remember, the 3D shape and the 2D shape have the same UVs, because we're going to be using this. Okay, so now if we go to delete the history, because we had to get rid of the let's Control Z back. We had to get rid of the transfer attributes. I'd Control Z to get it back. We had to get rid of the transfer attributes because it was using world space, and if we tried to move, we're going to use the 3D space to reshape our 2D into 3D. Okay, so our 3D shape has the same UVs as the flat UVs. So we're going to use that. So we're going to use that to there. We're going to transfer the vertex positions. We're going to turn off UV sets, and we're going to use the UVs themselves to change the shape. Okay, I'll Control Z back and I'll do it again. And then I immediately delete the history. Okay, now that is not too bad. That's definitely better, but it is not super great. And even if we smooth the mesh, okay, that looks better. And if we even transfer the attributes again to get the shape, it doesn't look half bad, but it's still not great edge flow. Okay, it's still not great edge flow. There's things you can do. We could have brought in, let me Control Z back. We could have brought this into 3D Coat, brought in the smoothed version into 3D Coat, and then use the retopology tools in there to move these edges so that they have better edge flow. You know, snap it to this shape. You import this shape into 3D Coat. You export this as an OBJ. Make sure you place it right on top of this mesh before you export it out. and then bring it into 3D coat, and then you can relax and move the edges until you get them better, and then smoothed it or added edges, and then to get it better. That would be one way to do it. But this video, we're here to talk about how do we use the well, I'm just going to delete this. How do we use displacement maps? Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to duplicate this mesh again. And now what I want to do is, again, we're going to use the transfer attributes, but we're going to go from here to there, and we're going to transfer the UVs using the UVs. So, I mean, I'm sorry, we're not going to transfer the UVs, we're going to transfer the normals. Okay, we're going to transfer the normals from here to here, okay, using the UVs, because they both have the same UVs. Now watch what happens. Now this flat has the normals of the 3D shape. Okay, now this is where the duplicate comes into play. Okay, so we're going to place it right on top of it. Okay, so we're going to create a normal, a transfer map from here to here. Okay, so this is the one. This one has that, and we should probably delete the history on that before we do this, just to be, it's always good to delete history. There we go. See, I noticed a slight lag when I went to move it. That's because it's still trying to calculate, because this one was still connected to this one because of the transfer map. So by deleting the history, now it's not connected and it can move freely. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to bake these normals onto this to create a normal map. Okay, so let's put this back to 0. So we're going to transfer that. Okay, so we're going to use transfer maps. So we're going to go to animation, and we are going to go to, no, not animation, I'm sorry, rendering. And we're going to go to transfer maps under shading, lighting and shading. Okay. And so we're going to select the one that we want to transfer it to. Remember, this is the one we want to transfer it to. This is the one that doesn't have any normals on it. And I'm going to, let's see. Oh, I got to remove this one. Oh, clear all. There we go. Okay, and so I have this one. Add selected. That's going to be the target mesh. And then we're going to go to the source mesh, which is the one that has the normals on it, and add selected. Okay, and that's the one that has the normals on it, right? And then I'm going to show you the settings that I'm using. Okay, so you give it a name and you tell it where you want to save it. And I'm using the JPEG, and I'm using tangent space. And then this is okay. You can have it connected or not connected. It doesn't matter, because what we're really interested is in the JPEG. That is going to. Then we also want to use, I'm using a 10 by 24 texture. The higher resolution the texture that you're creating, the better detail it will capture. So 10 by 24 usually works pretty well overall. But if you have some really fine detail, you'll want to use an even bigger one. And I'm keeping the aspect ratio just because it's easiest, because they're 10 by 24 by 10 by 24. Anybody using Second Life will be used to that resolution. Like I said, I'm using world space because I want to transfer it in world space. That's why they have to be right on top of each other. I'm using a medium sample quality of 4x4. You could go higher if you want, if you have a lot of detail, but 4x4 usually works just fine. Let's see. You want to have the fill texture seams to like 20 pixels. And I'll tell you why in a minute. Okay, and filter size is 3, that's fine. And let's look at the advanced options. Anything here? Nope, these are just fine. This is all fine. So these are just the defaults. Okay, and then you bake it. Okay, and then after you bake it out, you're going to have to need another program. There's several programs out there. This is the program I prefer, which is MindText. It's like 12 bucks, $15 normally. I think on sale you can get it for like 10. I have another one from Substance Painter, which is a bit more complicated. It's more, it's great too. It's really capable, and it's capable of doing the same thing that this is doing. But this is like a really inexpensive program, and what you do is you open up the normal map. So I will open up my normal map here. Okay, and this is what it looks like. Now, you wanted to fill the texture seam so that it goes past the UVs. So it bleeds it past the UVs. Okay, these are the UVs. And you can see that the UVs don't quite fill up to 100%. So see this square right here, one over to here, and down, that's the 10 by 24 image that's going to be exported out. And you can see there's a little bit of a gap, which is exactly what you want. You want a gap so that when you create your normal map here, it goes farther beyond the edge of the UVs. If you don't, you're going to get distortion right along where the UVs are. So that's why you want the fill. Okay, so now we have our normal map, and we're going to want to create a height map or a displacement map. It's the same thing. Height displacement map is the same thing. And I found out what works really well for me, at least if you're using MindText, is to use the shape, and then you want to lower the Z intensity to where you don't want 100% white or 100% black. If you were to have this at a higher Z intensity, everything that's white would be 100% flat. Everything that's black would be 100% flat. So you want the Z intensity to have sort of a, you don't want white, you don't want 100% black, you want gray. Okay? You want shades of gray. You know, something like that. And then you export it out. So that actually looks fairly decent. Let's see, a little bit more intense. That looks pretty good. Okay, so then I'm going to export out current and say yes. Okay, then what we want to do is come back here into Maya, and we want to take our duplicate that is flat. Okay, and now we're going to use, and we can close this out now. Now we're going to use, go back into modeling, we're going to use a texture, a height map, or displacement map to reshape this flat 2D to having nice folds and wrinkles in it, but it's going to be a simpler shape that the folds and wrinkles don't overlap on each other. so that it's going to be a lot easier for the Quad Remesher to generate a nice topology. Okay, so we come into the deform, we come here to texture, and you click on texture, and it just created a handle. Okay, and you see this little arrow? This arrow has to be pointing in the orientation of your, you want this handle to be in the same orientation as your mesh. Okay. So normally it would be pointing to the side. Because I'm in Z up, that's why it's pointing to the side. Maya normally is in Y up, so normally it'd either be pointing straight down or it'd be pointing straight up. Okay, so if your orientation of your mesh was flat, then you would have to rotate that handle to either be pointing straight down or straight up. Okay. So now we go into our attribute editor. Let's just move this out of the way. And you want to come over here until you see texture deform. And then you want to, we're going to add the texture. So we click there. It's just like adding a texture or a material to your mesh. We're going to click File, and then we're going to navigate to our map. And I don't know if you can see it. You can see it's already starting to change the shape of our mesh. Okay, I'm going to select it here again, and let's Control Z. Okay, so you can either click that to go back, and we're going to change the strength. Let's change it to 4. Oops, 4. And you notice it changed shape. It's a little more strong. It's been, so let's try 8. And you see how it's getting bigger? It's changed the shape of the mesh slightly. And now let's try something really big, like 32. There we go. Let's try 64. There we go. That's looking really good. So now you can see we have all the folds and the wrinkles, but they're not overlapping each other. This is a much simpler shape. So what I like to do at this point is I like to duplicate it, and I like to smooth it. Okay. Now we've duplicated it and we smoothed it. So that will smooth out some of the whoops. Where's my handle? Okay. What that will do is that will kind of smooth out some of these bumps that are along here. You know, that you see here. So that just sort of helps by smoothing it. And you can do other things to this. I mean, you could try to average the, use the sculpt geometry tool and average in the y-axis so that you average it. To kind of help smooth it out a little bit more. You can kind of see the little bumps and stuff, but this should be fine. Now, if we had this set to be really white here, like that, these would be, instead of a nice smooth arc, they'd be much flatter. Like this is a little bit flat right here. you know. So that's why you didn't want it to be real white and black, because you would lose the nice rounded arch. Now we do get a little bit of flat area in here, but not too bad. Okay. So now that we've smoothed it, now we can use the Quad Remesher. Okay, and I'm not even going to use any guides. You can still use the guides because they're still there. You could harden that edge there and harden the edge going back here if you really wanted to. But I'm not. Okay, so we're going to say 1500 and we're going to retopologize it. And I'm using a fairly low poly because I'm going to show you another step. So now we got much better. You see it has much better edge flow. It's going to actually follow the edge flow. And this is a much simpler shape for the Quad Remesher to retopologize. You don't have to worry about stuff folding over on each other. It's going to be a lot easier for the Quad Remesher to retopologize this and get fairly decent edge flow. Okay, so I'm going to delete history on it just to be on the safe side. Okay, so now we have these two meshes, right? We have the original smoothed version and we have the retopology version right on top of it. But the Quad Remesher version doesn't have any UVs because this we need the UVs. So oh, I should have moved this out of the way. Okay, so we want to take the UVs of the original, or the smoothed version, which has the same UVs as the 3D shape, and we want to select the retopologized version that doesn't have any UVs, and then we want to use the transfer mesh attributes again, and this time we're going to be transferring the UVs using world space, okay, which we just did. Let me move this over there and select the retopologized. And now here are our UVs. And we're going to want to delete the history again because we transferred it in UV space. Want to delete the history again. Okay, so that the two are not connected anymore. And then, let me move this over the side over here. We're going to take the 3D shape and our retopologized shape, and we are going to, using UV space, we don't want the UV set, we want to reshape it. So we want to move the vertex position. So we selected our 3D mesh first, then our retopologized object, which is this one, using the UV space, and we just reshaped it. And now I like to delete history immediately. And now let's move this over here. And now we have something that has much, much better edge flow. Okay? Much, much better edge flow. Okay, and from this point, we can do a whole bunch of things. We can say, we could relax the vertices a little bit, or we can say, okay, we need some extra detail, like right here and here. So we can add edge loops. So we're in modeling. Let me find the insert edge loop tool. Okay, yeah, it's under here insert edge loop tool, and we can go, where do we need more detail? I'd probably put one here and here. Definitely need two here. At least two here. Definitely need one there. One there. One there. Okay, so we're adding detail just where we need it. The rest of these look pretty good. Okay, we need at least one there. Probably at least two here. At least one here. Probably one there. One there. One there. One there. One there. One there. Okay. There and there. Okay. So now we have enough detail. And now we can do this again. Okay, so I would delete the go in object mode, delete history, and we're going to do it again. And that looks pretty good. Now we can do things like we can slide edges. So if you wanted to make it a little bit more, well, it depends on the edge. That wouldn't be too bad to, we could slide edges on that. We could slide edges. We could do all sorts of things. We could take it in a 3D coat and relax and move edges in there, which is many times much easier. We could select all, then I decreased the selection, and I could come in here to sculpt geometry. We can turn this off now. Here's relax, and I'm just relaxing along normals. So relax it a little bit. Okay. Then what I would do is, that doesn't look bad, although it lost a little bit of the shape. So what I would do is I would come into, oh, wrong one. Okay. This is Maya 2022. Let me go back to Maya 2020. Okay. For some reason, my particular one isn't working right. You would want to come in here on UV. Why isn't this selecting the UVs? Come on, UV. Maya's having a little bit of a... Oh, it's because I'm still in Sculpt Geometry Tool. Okay, yeah. It's because I'm still in Sculpt Geometry Tool. You come back here. You would want to go Modify, Optimize, Pin U... Oh, you'd want to go into Legacy, Pin UV border, UV space. but I'm getting an error when I do that. There's something messed up about my Maya. So what I would have to do is I would have to export this. So I'm going to delete the history. I would export this out as an OBJ. Okay, OBJ. I'm just going to reuse this one. And then I'm going to come in here to Maya 2022 and import it. Okay, so this is the skirt right here. And UVs, modify, optimize. See, legacy. For some reason that's missing. I don't know what's going on with my pin UV borders. We want world space, and I'm doing a maximum of 10 iterations. I can get it back here. Okay, and apply. See, notice how it moved the UVs. Okay, and then I would export this back out. Going to go right over the one that I had before. Okay, and come back here to Maya 20, and then going to delete that one, and I'm going to import it. Okay, so this is the one we just did. So the UVs have been relaxed. If you don't relax the UVs, if we do this again to transfer mesh attributes, it would just go back into the shape it was before. Because it goes by the UVs, right? So we have vertex position on, using UVs, and hit apply. And it disappeared, but only because it put it back there. So I'm going to hit delete history, come in here to the outliner, select that, and move this back. Now there are little things that you would do. Like I said, I'd probably bring this into 3D Code. I would move, because we didn't relax the very bottom, so you'd have to move that back into position, or to reflect to get good edge flow. But now we have something that's just 3,000 vertices, very reasonable. Has good edge flow. It's not perfect edge flow. Like I said, I would bring this into 3D Coat and push the edges around just a little bit to get a little bit nicer edge flow. But as you can see, it's very, very nice. And it retains the original UVs that Marvelous Designer had. It retains those UVs, so that if you like the UVs in Marvelous Designer, this has the same UVs as this does. So that's how to use displacement maps to retopologize something that would normally Quad Remesher would have a really, really hard time with. You know, especially faces that touch each other. Now, so far we don't have any faces that touch each other, but they come really close. Really, really close. And Quad Remesher would have a, as you saw, had a hard time retopologizing this. And this we made something that is 3,000 triangles, or vertices, I'm sorry, not triangles, vertices, or 5,900 triangles, which is fairly reasonable for a dress or a skirt, especially one that has this many folds and wrinkles. So we made something that is pretty efficient, and it's pretty efficient. And like I said, there's still stuff that I could do to improve this. You know, I would probably get rid of this face right here and just make it so that it goes straight down to connect to there. So there's stuff that you could still improve. It's not perfect by any means, but it's for Second Life. This would be actually pretty good and pretty efficient. And yes, if you really wanted to, you could select that there, and transfer the normals if there were some detail in here that didn't quite get over to here. Using the UVs, and hit apply. See, some of these little details here were kind of missing, but now we've got that over. You can even bring this into 3D Coat, subdivide it to smooth out that a little bit, and we would have gotten even a little bit nicer normals transferred over. And this doesn't require a normal map because we transferred the normals from here to here. It doesn't require a normal map. The normals have been baked in to the vertices. See, this was 21,000 vertices or 42,000 triangles. And this is only 3,000, a little over 3,000 vertices or 5,900 triangles. And as far as I know, nobody else has come up with doing it this way. And so using a displacement map in this way. So awesome. So I know it's a 42-minute long video. Really, it doesn't take that long if you just do the steps. I was describing everything as we went along. So you're looking at, could do this in 15 minutes to retopologize something like this. And we end up with something that is very nice. Like I said, I would bring this into 3D Coat. I would relax it a little bit to get rid of these wavy things, and it would look even better. It improves it by like 2 or 3%. But if you're a perfectionist and you want something that looks really, really awesome and will look even smoother, like I said, I would take this, I would import it into 3D Coat, into the sculpting thing, import it without voxelizing it, but subdivide it 2 or 3 times to make it super smooth. And then I would go into the Retopo room and I would import this, make sure it's sitting right on top of it before you export out the OBJ. Maybe I'll do that in the next video. I'll do that. That'll be in the next video. So, anyway, so enough of this video. I hope if you're using Quad Remesher that this isn't just for Second Life. This technique can be used whenever you're using Quad Remesher and having a hard time. And so, awesome. So we'll see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye-bye.